Hungary leads the Union Council. This is a logical thought, as the presidency concluded on the 31st of December. Thus, we can evaluate the situation. No doubt, we put in a tremendous amount of work. Numerous individuals put in a lot of effort for the success of Hungary's presidency. In my view, in the realm of public administration, the number exceeds hundreds. Together with related fields, this number may exceed 1,000. Here is a great opportunity to express our gratitude to them. Thank you all who worked for the success of the Hungarian presidency. Mr. János Boka deserves special mention for his outstanding work. They deserve our applause. Thank you, János. And those who oppose the success of the Hungarian presidency, since there were a considerable number of them, let the devil take them. And those Hungarians who are working against their fellow countrymen under Brussels orders should be sent to the deepest depths of hell, into the bog. Honestly speaking, I have met the request with this evaluation that closes the presidency. Because the Hungarian presidency did not mark the end of something, quite the opposite. The Hungarian presidency is the start of something, the beginning of a new era. Of course, let's not make the little rooster's mistake, who thinks that if he doesn't crow, the sun doesn't have to rise. But we must not undervalue our performance either. The history books will record this half a year as the period during which Donald Trump and the European patriots began transforming the Western world. Therefore, it is more worthwhile to discuss what this new era will be like. It is now a widely accepted view that the years of a world order change, the East, the years of Asia's rise. The world order as we have known it until now, the West, more precisely, the world order established and dominated by the Anglo-Saxons, has come to an end. The world's defining powers, centers of power, they are currently shaping those new economic, political, and cultural frameworks in which we will presumably live for many decades. The big guys are working full steam ahead and are preparing with great momentum for the new era. They are working full steam ahead, for example, on establishing new geopolitical frameworks. They want to ensure that things get done in their immediate neighborhood, so they are not threatened by surprises or dangers, and they want to assert what is necessary for their own safety, for their own security. Which is why Ukraine's membership of NATO is at the center of the Russia-Ukraine war. The objectives that the Russians are determined to pursue, and they will certainly hinder it. Thus, Greenland, Canada, and Panama are highlighted in the daily discussions of international politics. As a result, the South China Sea and Taiwan frequently make headlines in the news. Great power preparations. One might call it preparation, with the economy as the second front. Loud battle noise. The new technologies and innovative industries are leading the way. In China, they are now moving beyond mass production. They are now changing over to innovative high-tech industries that offer high added value. Electromobility, space exploration, telecommunications, and artificial intelligence. And also, this encapsulates the core of Donald Trump's new economic policy for America. Over the past decades, the Western liberal elite has devised and established a system referred to as woke capitalism. Western liberal politicians, they have substituted the principles of competitiveness and performance with the advocacy of diversity. They emphasize their position on the right side of history over competition, that they are on history's good side. They are the ones working for the correct order of the world. Indeed, they have effectively halted economic growth. They have caused inflation to skyrocket. Their factories keep closing. The value of wages has fallen alarmingly, but none of that matters. They could collapse their entire economic system if they are indeed the good ones, who elevate themselves above the entire world with their moral views. A striking example of this is the green transition and the green economic plan, which is currently ruining the European coast. This is false capitalism. The good news, Americans are waking up. They realized if this goes on, the whole world will follow suit, but China will definitely march past them, and at most be a market for super-modern products made elsewhere. If this continues, they won't write the future anymore. They might only be able to read it. And as time progresses, they will eventually lose the ability to comprehend what is occurring around them and to them. So in the United States, they decided to come off the drug. This is about Donald Trump's victory. And this is about the new US economic policy that is set to commence in 6.5 hours. The third area of the great competition is the competition of state models. They look everywhere for the most favorable forms of social organization that provide the best performance. Exciting and enlightening debates are taking place about this, from Washington across China, India, and Russia to Iran, Israel, and Turkey. What everyone can see, if they have eyes to see, is that the Western liberal model of state organization, referred to as liberal democracy, it has collapsed. It collapsed under its own weight, or more precisely, under the weight of its own mistakes. The place of this failure is indeed its homeland, the United States. A bureaucratic state system, overregulated economy, a state incapable of movement and action, a state that has ceased to serve its citizens and instead works against them. This is the core reason for the American uprising. The American revolt opens space. It provides the opportunity. It legitimizes the competition between state organizational methods. Beginning tomorrow, it will be right before us. The clash between American and Brussels systems is at hand. The fourth area of competition is identity. The cohesive force, the cohesion in Hungarian, the area of policies serving self-identity. Only such a power center can be successful, where public life is based on a common identity. History, language, religion, all those things. What liberal democracy has described, perhaps even looked down, and deemed to be outdated. Ladies and gents, how is this related to the Hungarian presidency? What does this have to do with our work? Friends, for 6 months we observed closely what was going on in Brussels. We delved deep into it. We had the chance to scrutinize it closely. We penetrated to the depths of the seat, and what we discovered was quite unpleasant. I have seen that the only center of geopolitics, where absolutely no attention is paid to these crucial future questions, is Brussels. Neither with the changes in world politics nor with the consequences for us. The European Union is not only lagging behind in the competition, but it hasn't even started preparing for the competition. It is comfortably sitting in the locker room, unaware that a crucial match is about to start outside. If things continue like this, the Union will be left out of the competition, its economy will falter, and its secure living conditions will cease. Therefore, the European Union should sober up. But instead, it is still in the phase of drinking more. It doesn't want peace, but insists on war. It doesn't want border protection, but migrants. It doesn't protect families, but gender. They want green policies, not affordable energy. Our conscience is clear. We have spoken. We have said and warned, even in the face of serious controversy. The Hungarian presidency has said that the war weakens Europe. We will suffer defeat. More precisely, we have already suffered defeat. This is not a football match. It's not about who stands on whose side, who supports whom. This is not a game. This is war, and the stakes are our own skin. If a war takes place on the European continent, we can only lose from it, all of us. Not just Ukraine, which has already been consumed by the war, but all European national economies. Prices are sky high. Our money is being consumed by the Ukrainian front. The sanctions have hit our industries hard. And energy prices are crippling European companies that were competitive before the war. The Hungarian presidency has raised the flag of peace, opened the door to ceasefire and peace negotiations, initiated dialogue with the warring parties, and put pressure on European leaders to also restart diplomacy and communication. Only in wars where the parties aim at the destruction of the other, there is no need for communication. But do we really believe that our soldiers will be marching under the European Union flag in Moscow's Red Square? If we do not believe that, then we must keep the diplomatic channels of negotiation open. We accomplished this, even though it was only possible on a national basis, because most member states opposed peace. But we persevered. Today we proudly pass the peace baton to the new American leaders. Let's admit it. This is, after all, more suited to them, or more accurately scaled to them. Good intentions, bravery, and diplomatic skill are admirable traits. Christian duty matters. But in the end, strength is needed for peace. In line with our geopolitical interests, we facilitated Romania and Bulgaria's accession. To the borderless European region, we launched negotiations for Albania's association and brought all the Balkan countries closer to the European Union. We adopted a common plan for simpler economic regulation and to bolster the agricultural sector and for reducing energy prices. We have made notable progress in identity-strengthening policies as well, with Meloni leading the way. We launched a revolt against the migration policies imposed by Brussels. We held a demographic consultation, perhaps for the first time in the history of the European Union. We adopted documents recognizing the values of Jewish life in the face of a resurgent wave of anti-Semitism in Western Europe, and we established the European Party of Patriots, which strongly represents national sovereignty ideas in Brussels. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have achieved in Europe. This is no small step forward, and one not seen for years. The question is where Hungary is in this. Like the big players, we Hungarians are also working on this, to become winners in the emerging New World Order, and in the New World Order that is expected to be sustainable. We updated the foundational structure of our economy back in the early 2010s. We have moved the emphasis of our tax system from work to consumption. Low taxes on labor, 1 million new jobs, achieving full employment, an environment that supports investments and businesses, ongoing increases in wages, except 1 year, 2013, in a year of war sanctions. Families have been positioned at the heart of our economy and society. We have included universities within the economic system. We set a new basis for research and innovation. And we began, too, the development of the most cutting-edge new sectors in Hungary. The most state-of-the-art factories worldwide in electromobility, the establishment and launch of our own satellite system, and joining forces with the newest military research projects, the laser sector, and initiating top-tier health research, especially since we have a Nobel laureate in this field. This task is never complete. You can never have too many new technologies. In place of liberal democracy, since 2010, we have been protecting a new national family and community. On a basis of sovereignty, we wrote a new constitution based on Christian traditions, and we adopted a method for organizing the state. As they say about us in America, we were already Trump before Trump. We are doing well on the economy, governance, and identity. We are at the forefront of the world, not followers as we have been for centuries, but pioneers, model makers, model creators, brave experimenters. This is why we are seen as icons by Western conservatives and why Western liberals despise us wholeheartedly. And it is precisely our struggles over the past 15 years that now provide Hungary with the opportunity for a new economic policy. We have just launched this new economic policy. The first action plan has 21 points, is now becoming a reality in the Hungarian economy. The political foundation and support for this comes from the most recent national consultation that focuses on economic neutrality. 1,355,000 people took part in the consultation, and 95% of them supported the new economic policy being based on neutrality and economic independence. Here I must say a few words on economic neutrality in the context of the European Union. The liberals see the doctrine of economic neutrality as a political ploy, rather than a communication or a serious but not a political ploy, an idea that does not go down to the deeper context. However, economic neutrality represents a concept and political direction which outlines Hungary's position and trajectory in the international landscape. A position and direction that is distinct and even opposed to the expectations from Brussels, as well as the government's economies and policies. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that the European Union has been isolated by its present leaders. That they call us isolated, do not be fooled. We are up against an old communist trick. They are always accusing their opponents of what they are doing. The truth is that no other continent is like this, which has become so isolated from all significant actors in the New World Order. Europe has distanced itself from the new American administration. European liberals have characterized Donald Trump as a demon, and this hurts. It's not only us Europeans who remember, but the new American governments remember. Nem csak mi európaiak emlékezünk, hanem az új amerikai kormányzat is. The EU has isolated itself from China by calling it a systemic rival to one of the world's economic superpowers and launching a tariff war against it. The Union has also isolated itself from Russia. European leaders refer to the Russian-Ukrainian war as their own conflict and dismantled the pairing of cheap Russian energy with advanced European technology and its economic structure, failing to provide any substitutes or alternatives in its wake. And the Union has also isolated itself from Africa, the continent of the future. In place of rationality, they impose foreign LGBTQ and gender policies as conditions for cooperation, which is completely out of touch with local realities. And in doing so, made a relationship based on trust impossible. Meanwhile, as Hungary leads, we Hungarians, we have been steadily building future cooperation with the Republican foes, who have meanwhile won a landslide victory. We have maintained a channel of communication and cooperation with Russia that guarantees reasonable energy security. Almost all Chinese high-tech investment to Europe comes to Hungary, and Hungarian water and agricultural expertise is welcomed everywhere in Africa. If this trend persists, the Union will end up as the total loser in the New World Order. We appreciate it, but we want no part of this losing situation. We desire allies, partnerships, economic connections, and business profits, and advantages in international politics. And let us pause for a moment, dear comrades from Brussels, for that mask has also fallen away, the one we have witnessed so far. It is hard to find a more hypocritical political class in the world than that of the Brussels bureaucrats. Meanwhile, they insist on breaking away from Russian energy supplies. Is it true that more liquefied natural gas from Russia has arrived in Western Europe than ever before? Meanwhile, European corporations have procured their Russian oil through some Asian back channels. On the topic of avoiding sanctions at a systemic level, the Brussels official, who held a 45-minute presentation on this, summarizes his points by stating that the sanctions are working. And as I glance at the new sanctions package, I observe that their imagination has now gone so far as to add football teams to this new list. Ladies and gentlemen, we Hungarians, in contrast to Brussels, have a well-crafted strategy for the coming era. The results of this are evident. Even our opponents can only debate these with embarrassing shame. Everyone has a job. In our country, families pay the lowest utility rates in all of Europe. We have curbed inflation so much that last year we were able to increase pensions in real terms. Above the increase in line with inflation, we were able to give pensioners another 150 billion. Wages have started to increase. We have doubled the family tax allowance. In addition to the student loan, we are introducing a worker loan. The budget deficit has decreased and the national debt has not increased. No one disputes that in these years. The growth of the Hungarian economy will be at least twice that of the European Union's economic growth. 450 billion forints worth of public investment will be launched. Hungarian small and medium-sized enterprises will receive 1,400 billion forints in 2025. The savings of Hungarian families are at least 1.5 times the European Union average. Ladies and gentlemen, in the light of this, the only question is whether Brussels is that way and we are this way. If they stand this way, we stand that way. So what will the relationship between Brussels and Hungary be like in the coming years? Our starting point is that the focus of the Hungarian presidency was not on the EU presidency, but the Hungarian people. We will shape the Brussels-Budapest relations similarly. We will align it with the interests of the Hungarian folks. What will transpire is, this is not based on the interests of the EU, but it can be linked to the overarching strategy of Hungary. The question we start with is this: is it something we care about, whether the European Union is sick or healthy? It could be said, if the EU is sick, then let it be sick, and Hungary should remain healthy. After all, we do not want to shape Europe. We just want to live our own lives as we want, and we are only interested in making sure that someone else doesn't hijack it. Great. It sounds good, but unfortunately it's not that simple. Sadly, this contribution won't be sustainable. First of all, because the content and quality of EU economic regulations affects the success of Hungarian economic actors. In Budapest, we can soften the effects of bad economic policies from Brussels, but they cannot be entirely avoided. Moreover, there are also exclusive EU competences, such as trade and customs policy, which are important, even fundamental issues. Therefore, it is not indifferent for Hungary whether the EU is in poor health or thriving. Hungarian From the viewpoint of our Hungarian successes, this is a side condition. However, the EU is unwell. Today, the European Union represents the sick man of Europe. The signs are clear. They are known. They are commonly the focus of thorough and detailed analysis. Without delving into specifics, it suffices to mention that the Union is unable to guarantee the peace of Europe and its immediate neighborhood. Think of the Russian-Ukrainian war. The Union is also incapable of guaranteeing Europe's prosperity. Just think of the alarming report. The Union is incapable of stopping illegal migration as well. The Union does not give any hope for the agricultural sector in Europe. In fact, Ukraine joining the European Union would devastate European farmers too. The Hungarian presidency openly addressed these issues in a straightforward and clear manner, with a straightforward political approach. However, in the debate, the question is raised, the argument will not be enough in the future. It is a waste of words and time, because you cannot build policy on the insight of Brussels bureaucrats. We knew this, and the experiences from the presidency have confirmed it. They are unyielding. The crisis situation of the Union, of course, did not develop overnight. We have been struggling with these issues for decades. This also raises the question of the responsibility of institutions and individuals. We are talking about politics, but that is something for another lecture. What is important here and now is that the Union is accumulating failure after failure. And during this time, EU institutions are becoming more robust and are strengthened through the acquisition of new powers. Look at the list. In 2000, we made a decision that by the year 2010, the European Union would be the world's most competitive knowledge-based economy. This was known as the Lisbon Strategy. We see our status. Next, the Europe 2020 strategy arrived, outlining specific development objectives. It remained on paper. Then the plan for the green transition came. It failed after 5 years. And behold the miracle. Brussels, instead of self-review, responded poorly by resorting to more centralized policies and withdrawing powers from the member states. Simultaneously, obviously to support the previous goal, Brussels openly misused its authority, tying member states down with legal and financial pressures. This is simply pure revenge and punishment. Hungary has a conditionality process. However, there are intricate and refined tools and methods available as well. That's how I see it. With this in mind, I can safely say that Brussels does not think the European Union is sick at all. They think it is working exactly as it should. I have to say that the aim of European integration today is the integration itself. The right question is, or should be, whether or not common policies make member states more successful together than they would be separately. But for Brussels, the question is rather how common policies contribute to the creation of a supranational bureaucracy. Thank you for looking at it. Now, the pressing question is how we, as Hungarians, ought to respond to this particular situation we are witnessing. How can we heal? How can we restore the union that aims for federalization? And that has targeted the elimination of state sovereignty as its goal. In brief, my response to this question is as follows. Change is essential. And this change must be achieved through political means, externally, and it can be accomplished through the conflicts we have with Brussels. Naturally, we should also take advantage of the tools available within the Union, like occasionally making agreements, but in fact we, Hungary, are opponents of the Brussels system. Consequently, we are also the opposition to the political elite that has become part of the Brussels system. Let's talk straight. Brussels is under the occupation of an oligarchy, which is left-leaning, which is orchestrated by the liberal and transatlantic elite. This is a power structure. This is a global power system, not a European one. It is not democracy, but oligarchy. And it is not based on the sovereignty of nation-states, but rather on a federal system. Even the blind can tell that we are facing a progressive liberal united front, funded by George Soros money. We are under attack because we are sovereignists, even patriots. They are attacking us because we demand that the rule of law should also apply to Brussels. We are under attack because we demand that the fight against corruption should also apply to Brussels. There is the cheeky case of Commissioner Reynders. He has been baiting Hungary for years, accused of violating the rule of law and corruption. Now that his mandate has ended, he is being prosecuted for corruption and seeking restitution. And we are being educated by those who cannot see the beam in their own eyes. Gentlemen, we know their fighting methods. They will use all means. If needed, they will promise you a job, scholarships, recognition, the spotlight, power, and money. If needed, they threaten with cash, fines and financial penalties, and stripping voting rights. No illusions. There will always be those among us who will be frightened and think there is a lesser evil to choose from. If we do not put an end to this spiral of blackmail now, it will only worsen from this point on. Then naturally the current favorites will emerge, who are in their corner, and put them on the backs of the member states. Let us keep our eyes peeled. The Polish conservative government has in fact been replaced by the bureaucrats in Brussels with the liberal Polish government of today. We see it. Their tools are not ineffective, and they are not safe. In contrast, our political strength draws from a different source. We are not waiting for Brussels to let us into the halls of power. Our power isn't from Brussels, and it is not based on the left liberal elite's approval. We request and gain our authority from the European citizens. The European elections have brought a new right-wing majority into realistic proximity, which could potentially unseat the Brussels elite. And in the debate of the Hungarian presidency in the European Parliament, this new force made its first show of strength. The Hungarian presidency has demonstrated the need and the opportunity for change. The constellation under which we now stand is much more favorable than before. We are stronger now. In the meantime, the leading force of Western liberalism has capsized. The West has a new patriot. Washington has welcomed a president who supports peace, rejects migration, and values family. A few hours to go. Soon the sun will shine in a new way over Brussels. A new US president, a large patriotic faction in Brussels. Excitement is palpable. Tested patriots who love their homeland. Let the great push begin. I hereby launch the second phase of the operation to take Brussels. Thank you for listening. Go Hungary. Go Hungarians.